Sweet.
I've got something to share, but I just want to kick this off with one point because I know what I want to title this pod. And here's the truth, bro. Cold email isn't dead. You want to know what I mean by that? This is a skill that I feel, especially now, people are on social. They're like, you know, we might, it might seem like people are more interconnected, but I feel like people have lost that skill of just cold reach outs. And how do you bridge that gap? If you're here and there are all the gatekeepers, there's only one way to do it. Either you know someone who can bridge that gap or it's the cold approach. And it's not going to be successful every time, but it's just about getting that batting average up of like, it's all about the numbers game. If you reach out to 20 people, one person will get back. And I think that applies if you want to be anything in this industry. You want to be an actor, director, producer, writer. This can be an agent, manager, producer, sales agent. All these people have emails, and a lot of these emails are accessible, and including talent, bro. Like a lot of, I mean, we've talked about this before, but like I have reached out to talent who've gotten back and read scripts. And I think there's this self-limitation we put on where we're like, it's not worth it, or like they're at another level or whatever. Why are you already stopping yourself before you even pursue the thing? So I think that people should get more in the practice of that cold outreach.
10% of the time, it works every time.
That's it. What's that, Anchorman?
Oh yeah. I think it was Paul Rudd who said 60%. As Brian Fantana, 60% of the time. Yeah, it's definitely not dead. And the cold DM on Instagram is even more encouraged from my standpoint. Yeah, on that same note, actually, that's like what pertains I'm working on right now is I reached out to a series of like Los Angeles type magazines and publications, and one got back to me. Another, like, I got even more creative than another thing, like publicized us for Value Mentality. Just by I liked one of their comments. And it was just San Fernando Valley Magazine. And then they did a whole post on us and we got 50 followers from it just casually. And like that alone, I was just like, it's like such a gesture of good faith. It's so nice to be like, kind of reaffirm how I would hope we'd be perceived by anything to do with the Valley. Like they saw our thing, they're like, they DM'd us, oh my gosh, we're such big fans of your brand and the whole thing.
So that's smart. Outlets like that is a smart avenue.
Yeah. It seems so obvious, but like anything to do with the Valley, that's a publication. Like we should be that, even though it doesn't necessarily fit our like aesthetic necessarily. It is like geographic.
But it's the Valley. That is
exactly. No, but our aesthetic is like we want to capture the Valley, but in a like badass, really poetic, like incredible way, which is not always the Valley way. We want to like capture the Valley mentality, but in a high polished way.
I do think though that there's some overlap. Like if you were to,
well, the overlap for starters is just that it's the Valley and we're showing love to the same place. So we have like the same intent in mind. The difference is that a lot of things in the Valley are sort of like suburban and casual and like they're doing their own thing. Whereas like we're trying to go and take sort of our talents that we've been around the world and whatever. I run the risk of sounding snobby, but of like seeing the outside world and being like, okay, well, we're going to use that experience to capture the Valley in a way that it means to us.
What do you think your demographic is?
So it's not just Valley people. That's the thing. We're taking the Valley mentality, which is raw, and we want to bring it to a smart artistic person that understands that the Valley is a lot more than it's been recognized as.
Is there a target age?
That also encompasses people that just love the Valley, but it also it is also getting at people that might have nothing to do with the Valley, but just like respect the underdog mentality. That's really what it is, but captured in a artistic, badass way. Raw but polished. So let me get to what I'm doing. This is much bigger than that. So one of the publications that I reached out to, I mean, yeah, so they're called Voyage LA. They got back to me and they're like, this is perfect. So on brand. Thanks for reaching out. I was like, okay, awesome. And bro, they're doing a profile on me and like mainly value mentality, but like about young artistic entrepreneur. And so I've just been working on my whole interview. And I think they're big. They're big. So very exciting. And I just realized I hadn't put in the podcast in my list of like things I'm doing. Look at that.
Appointment.
Yeah. I was literally like, oh my gosh, how did I not? So I'm gonna change that.
Dude, you know what? Voyage LA reached out to me like 2 or 3 years ago, and I
Really?
thought they were a scam. So I didn't do it. But they are, bro. They do these like profiles. I think their target is like up and comer, kind of, cutting edge, like artist types.
Dude, don't you just stomp all over my brigade?
I'm
like
not trying to, bro. I'm not trying to. Dude. No, bro. Here's the
Dude,
thing. I just think it's
I didn't
funny.
even respond to them, and I think it's your up and comers that are like at negative years in their career.
Nah, bro. I just think it's funny that, because bro, they are like absolutely legit. It's just, I think it's funny that like
Well,
I had
no,
no
by the
idea.
way, it's also possible. I don't know how long they've been around for or anything.
That's it.
And
Like
they might have been nothing 2 years ago.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that being said, I also give credit to you on that. I think that's just cool that you had that opportunity. It's funny that you didn't look into it. I mean, I guess that stuff happens. Not that it would have been a big deal, but
What though, bro? When that happened, it was actually, I think it was maybe like 4 years ago, but I at the time, I'm so glad that I didn't submit, because I was not like serious about filmmaking at all. It wasn't even like about filmmaking. I think one of my friends,
I knew you 4 years ago. You were like really intense about writing and stuff. I think it would have been just fine. You're still driven.
but bro, at that time, I was my like number one priority in that moment was urbexing. Do you know what that is?
Is that like wingsuit base jumping?
I wish. It's illegally trespassing on like these abandoned properties and like taking photos. And like that was what I was into at that time, because I was just doing it like really consistent in that moment. Like I was going to these abandoned malls and all this shit. And I would have written about that. And bro, it would have been like fine or whatever, but like it would have been hilarious, because my one profile of like the big magazine or whatever, it would have nothing to do with like my filmmaking or anything. It's just like I like going into abandoned spots.
That not 4 years ago, where like I was talking with you and Sophia, and you were in writers groups and stuff.
I was doing some writers group stuff, but I mean, dude, it was casual at the time. Did it not come across that way to you?
No, it didn't. I mean,
already
Sophia
like
and Yoni. If you're with Sophia and Yoni, that means they're not going to talk with anyone that doesn't mean business.
I mean, I think I was writing on and off, but dude, it's honestly hard to put myself back in that mindset. I don't really know.
Yeah, a couple years ago, you seemed pretty driven. I mean, we did that feature film. What was that? 2 years ago? Probably more. 3 years ago.
No, that was definitely what you talking. Oh, bro, that was like 2.5.
And that you had already been. I mean, that I felt like I knew you for a while at that point. You would have been just fine doing an interview, but point taken that maybe that would have pegged you incorrectly going forward.
But all press is good press.
I mean, like I think it's good. I think for us, I could be wrong, but it's like one of the most important things Value Mentality needs is like a profile, is to get people that know that we're there. And Voyage LA is like a really good source for like things LA. There's like a whole section devoted to the valley and stuff.
Yeah, dude.
So, and
one of the things you talked about, was it just like your journey as you started and like how you got to this place? what you've been
Yeah,
up to?
the questionnaire essentially like starts with like what are you doing with your brand, and then in like by brand like it's centered on value mentality, and then it's like what trials and tribulations have you had, where do you see yourself going, and I
Trials and tribulations have you had?
well I talk about that like it's been one of the most fulfilling things ever, as you know, creating clothing that celebrates a place that is even bigger than ourselves, you know, even though it sounds corny. And then seeing people wear that stuff that we created and getting to a point of high fashion where we really have our creative vision and tastes and stuff satisfied and it's gone beyond what I hoped is like remarkable and mind blowing and like didn't have to happen. But every step of the way has been like pulling teeth. And it took enough just to, I mean, I started with just for proof of concept, putting the title on a shirt, blank shirt for so cheap and just seeing what people would think of it. And the response was good, but a lot of people didn't get it. And then bringing Tanner on and my buddy Brian Spunt helping us find manufacturers, designers, finding out the designers sucked and having to do it ourselves. Manufacturers finding someone cheap enough to do it local, finding printers that can like print the design, having them screw up, getting the business license, partnership license, reselling license, um, every single photographers, videographers overpaying, getting them to edit every single thing, taking way longer than you'd hope it would. Um, you know, having a vision for things is tough enough, but then once you have it and none of it comes as easy or comes at all with what you hoped. But you know, we did three things that we really want to do. We made the short film. We've done the pop-ups in person. We've done the VW bus stuff in person, like ice cream truck style. We've done the parties. We've done, you know, it's all been a whirlwind already.
There's something to like the tangible quality of clothing, of seeing that on other people, like even like going to a party like that and like seeing everyone come in wearing the stuff, a hat, whatever, that is like it's different from like making a film or because it's so visible. You can see it.
And it probably is a little bit more consistently satisfying than a movie. Like a movie you see once and you're like, what the hell happened to it? Especially if it's streaming. It's like streaming, you're like never to be heard from again.
Yeah.
But it's not, it can't just be about that. Whereas like clothing, I see someone just posted about it. Just two people today, someone yesterday, and like wearing it, we repost it. It's like no one's begging these people to wear this stuff. Like it's pretty tight, but it does feel bigger than me. Like it's not exclusive to me. It's not like I'm like, oh yay, 10 points for me when I see someone wearing that. It's a little lost on me probably. Because you see people wear the stuff and I'm just thinking like we need the masses to be wearing it. So it's a little lost on me
You're
probably.
always looking at the next thing.
Yeah.
It's hard not to do.
But I say in this interview that I think a reason for that is because I know what my goal is. My goal is to not have a day job.
Yeah.
To be able to
And
do
then
my
once you no longer need a day job, you're gonna be like, it's not big enough, bro. Like,
well, ultimately, I say immediate goal is to not have a day job and be able to pay my bills and my creative pursuits.
yeah,
But ultimately, I want to see the potential through and really, you know, we want to make the Valley cool. I want to make it so that people are like, oh, damn, the Valley's got a lot going on with it.
let me ask you a question. Would you give up like the acting stuff? Like if this thing really took off and you were CEO of this thing and it was a fucking like multi-million-dollar clothing brand, would you put all your eggs in this basket? Or would you still be like trying different
I don't
stuff?
think I have to decide. I think I'll always audition no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think this will just bring me closer to me. A director, big director just hit us up, Valley Mentality, after seeing that thing. And so now I have that contact.
That's wild. And that, bro, that goes to show like the one just bleeds into the next thing. It's like
yeah.
the overlap of that is so smart.
And when I still imagine myself in the future, I imagine myself being an actor and creative. But like, in addition to Valley Mentality, my hopes have morphed. And I now, and I was talking to my life coach about this yesterday. Like, I do want to become a serial entrepreneur and someone who's really smart with businesses and can like take my Jeez, Siri going off. I want to be someone that's like a venture capitalist type thing. Like take what I've learned and be able to streamline it for other businesses quick. And really, be a business guy. So
The entrepreneur thing, I mean, I think that's kind of like a rare mentality. I don't come across a lot of, and I have the same thing, bro, of just wanting to create something and,
if you're a filmmaker, you're an entrepreneur.
yeah,
If you're a director producer, you're an entrepreneur.
yeah,
Your movie is a business.
right. Yeah, each film is a business.
Product, it's the business,
Mhm.
and your customer is the audience.
And I don't think most people have that. Most people don't have that entrepreneur thing.
No. I'm reading, by the way, have you not read Phil Knight, his book Shoe Dog, the autobiography? So have you heard of it?
No.
Are you familiar with Phil Knight?
Mm-mm.
So he's the creator of Nike. And there's that movie recently about him, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, about like a moment at
Oh
Nike.
yeah, I didn't see that, but I knew that came out.
It was cool. I thought it was all right. But everyone's been saying for a while, you got to read Shoe Dog. It's about Phil Knight's creation of Nike, and it's the most inspiring thing ever as an entrepreneur, as an underdog, etc.
Mhm.
And for some reason, I just heard on this podcast that this private equity business creator is like reading it right now, and it's so epic. And he says that knowing what Nike becomes every step of the way, you're like, how do they get through that? How do they get through that? How do they get through that? And so I finally was like, oh, wait, I got to check it out. And I'm not that far in, but it is epic so far. Every bit as exciting as the Bob Iger book, Ride of a Lifetime, which I was over the moon about. It's like it's such a page turner. I'm listening to the audiobook, but it's just very insightful and I don't want to say necessarily relatable, but it's about in a brief. I think he grew up like in the 50s, Phil Knight in Oregon, and it was right after World War II. And he came from a background where his dad came from poverty. And so when he made it successfully, he wanted his family to be respected and upstanding and about institutions and things. And Phil Knight wanted none of that. And he wanted to just be debonair and entrepreneur, fiery. But like it's not without nothing. He had like a lot growing up, and he went to University of Oregon, which was a big school. Then he got his MBA at Stanford, and then he just felt like in a lot of ways he was an underdog though. Like he wasn't good with girls. He was all this stuff. And anyway, he gets this idea to go to Japan back when it was right after World War II. Japan, in a lot of ways, still the wounds were still open.
Yeah.
Hiroshima and everything. And there's just a great moment already that I've seen of him like pitching to be the salesperson for this Japanese shoe company and bring them to America.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's as an entrepreneur, as someone that puts himself on the line, their career on the line, their future, giving a taste of how long he'd have to wait till he heard from the Japanese company of if they were sending anything, his dad, like what he thought about him, and his relationship with his dad is super cool and like doesn't go where you think it's going to go in a lot of ways. Like he's so much more supportive than you expect, and in other ways it's like super just tough, and like it just captures the little moments of life. It's awesome. Anyway, that's my
Autobiographies are great because you're actually in the mind of the person,
yeah,
and walking you through it. That
if
is
they're a good writer.
Yeah, that is inspiring though. And as a filmmaker, I can say I do not do enough of flexing that muscle of like actually putting myself out there if it comes to like pitching to high net individuals or sales agents and all that kind of stuff. And so I think even though they're not in the industry, you're reading this book on, I mean, Bob Iger, he's not really an entrepreneur. Yeah. He's more like kind of a suit guy.
Totally. He came up the corporate system.
Right.
He's not an entrepreneur. no.
Yeah. But like that idea,
Still an innovator.
oh, 100%,
A
100%.
and
Just a
a
different path.
lifetime learner and stuff, like definitely has a lot of crossover with entrepreneurs. But yeah, I definitely didn't like start up a company out of nowhere and everything.
Yeah. But like, you know what's the most difficult period is when I think you're a little past this, but like when you were, you printed your first shirts and you were like, yeah, like I believe in this thing, and it was you. That's what being an entrepreneur is like you don't have any proof externally whatsoever, and only you believe in this thing, and you have to pitch this thing out to people to start bringing them on. And then you start to see the snowball going, and it just takes off. But that initial period of that just start is the most difficult.
It is. And I have vivid visions in my mind of like people saying, I don't get it. Like the valley isn't a mentality. What is the valley mentality?
They'd say that to your face.
Yeah.
That's legendary, bro. That's part of the history of it.
Yeah. I had people from the valley laugh about it. Just say, why would you want to live in the valley?
Last words.
Just like things that they might have had a point, but the reactions of what I saw of people that liked it and what I believed in it way out the way. And I still think about like, is this enough to put a lot of eggs into this basket to try to make a business off of that I can, have a career with? And I think it is.
Opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. When it comes to art or piece of merch that you're creating, whatever it is, any kind of creation, just because someone, what's his face? Who said this? Who's the guy who made Boogie Nights?
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah. When he was first pitching his films, he was insecure because people said like they didn't like it or they didn't think it didn't make sense, whatever. And he talks about how like just because they have that opinion, it doesn't mean that they're right and that you're wrong. It just literally means that that's their opinion on it, and that's like it at face value. It doesn't go any deeper than that. And like a lot of the time, people are like taking criticism if it's real constructive and you think about it and you're like, yeah, you know what, that could improve this, whatever. But if it's the flat out, what's that?
The way to take criticism is by saying, I'm not going to beat myself up over what they said. I'm not going to lose self-esteem because of what they said. But hey, if I'm recognizing I'm a work in progress and I'm trying to benefit off of everything, can I use what they said in a way to somehow get better in the direction I want to go? A lot of times it's no.
Yeah, most times.
Then you chuck it. And it takes experience. That was the biggest thing for me. Being able to observe genuinely since I've started creating legitimate stuff and taking stock of what people are saying, just because people are convicted and really intense about what they say does not mean they're right. I've seen, and since I've started studying, people that are close to me, people that I respect a lot, they say stuff, and I tell myself the biggest thing is don't get hung up on what they're saying.
Yep.
You don't have to prove it. You don't have to defend. You don't have to prove anything yourself. Just distract yourself and forget about it, because then a week later they will say something that's the opposite of it. And that is like the biggest equalizer. You're just like, hey, also, I'm sure I've done the same thing. So it takes the weight off myself too. Like people just say shit.
They do just say shit.
As do I. Like I just say stuff and I eat my words all the time. So it's like
100%. And a lot of times people will say shit and then they'll just forget that they said it. And like the person they say it to, like we can hold on to that shit and be like, yeah, they're right. Like all this shit. And they don't even fucking remember saying it. And they don't believe in it anymore either. It's like, why the fuck are we holding on to this shit? And bro, I'm so glad that you brought up the conviction thing, because that's something I haven't thought about in a while, but that's so fucking real, where it's like, just because someone sounds like this is the thing, like this is absolute fact, like me saying it in that tone, like this is the truth, like it doesn't mean anything. Like you can look back at, like, bro, fucking Hitler.
Yeah, that's the reality. So no, totally. it's not like we're taking this seriously because they're just like, oh yeah, you should do comedies instead of horror. It's not like they're saying it like off the cuff. People will like outright be like, dude, no one's making those types of movies anymore. You shouldn't, because like I'm gonna tell you what no one else will tell you. I'm being your friend here. Some of that, like, people will be like really
all that shit.
understandably, not discluding myself. Like, we all do this type of stuff, and it's well intentioned too. But you have to know about human nature if you're gonna go do anything worth doing that 9 out of 10 other people will quit before you do. You have to be able to have a thick skin. You almost have to be delusional. And I think that comes from like a deep spirit of excellence, of knowing that, hey, I've got my goals. I'm going to work and strive for excellence and see the potential of what I can do in those things, no matter what. And maybe there's a point of where you decide on your own terms you want to quit or about face or go in a different direction, which I think can be healthy, but so that you're not a slave to whatever you're committed to. But I do think that you can't be just a product of your circumstances. You have to be stronger than your circumstances. And that comes from committing to those goals and striving for greatness outside of yourself, even, and then you got to really distract yourself and write out the lows. You got to keep positive. You got to laugh a lot. You got to do hobbies. You got to do things. You can't just be holding on to this thing like something that you need. You can't need it. So this is all self-help stuff, but it's all about balancing act mentally.
A lot of the times when people say something and it's like an opinion and they say it like in a very convincing way, like, here, like, I'm trying to help you, whatever. It has to do with their own life experience 100%.
Of course.
It didn't work out for them. Like, that's why
from what they've seen.
Yeah.
What witness to something else. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just like, it doesn't mean it's right either.
And the nature of art or like business innovation, all innovation, the definition of innovation is like creating something new or like an upgrade of something that hasn't been out in the world before. And in order to do that, the delusional thing is true, but like, no one thinks you're delusional once you manifest that shit. You actually come out with it and people like it. But like, there is that timeline of like, I gotta just stick to, even though I'm not seeing any results, everyone's telling me I'm fucking insane, I gotta do this. But bro, that is,
it's the haves and have-nots. I mean, you look at like Olivia Colman, the actress, or the actress Wingham or whatever, who's the girl in Ted Lasso. All these people, like, it's not looking so great when they don't have their giant vehicles that make them a superstar. For the 20 years where they're just grinding it out, doing like little bit parts here and there, or whatever, and they're the success stories. But like, for me, especially, I've had like, but then you sprinkle on a little success, a little something that's mainstream and something to show for it, and then all of a sudden the journey looks like it was like so intentional and like whimsical and profound. But like, when you're going through the actual process before the success, you're like, I'm 1 foot out, like ready to switch it up at any second.
I am, that movie Talk to Me, before they released it to Sundance and it got picked up by A24 and all that shit, they made a film and they went to like some kind of smaller festival, and their speech was something along the lines of like, it was just like a small thread that I was just following. I was following this thread, and like, it would be so easy to just kind of give up on it. But we just decided, let's keep going. Let's just keep going and following it. It was like a loose thing of this process finally coming together into this massive successful thing. But at the end of the day, that little like thread of hope and just belief in like whatever the fuck you're making, that is the most important thing. You just got to keep plodding along. Last thing I'll say, because I know you got ahead, but there is something about creating something and not telling anyone about it and just staying in the thing and not sharing it too early or being like, I'm working on this. And then you hear people's fucked up opinions, and you're like, oh, well, this part of the story, I'm thinking this. And then you get some more fucked up opinions, and then you're like, fuck this. It's like not even worth it. And then the project dies. Like, I'm finding that more and more, the more that I work on stuff, bro, there's nothing more satisfying than just like, I'm going to start a screenplay. I'm not going to tell anyone about it. It's just me and this fucking thing. I'm just going to slave away on this thing. And then you come out with this fucking thing that was not, it just wasn't killed off because some dickhead was like, he had a rough home life and like his mom told him he
Right.
could write screenplays and shit.
My opinion's changed on that a little bit. I used to try to like keep it cool and think, but now I try to come from a place, and I don't know if this way is right, but I've tried to come from a place of like courage rather than what I took it as, which is fear. And I put my stuff out there. I'm able to talk about stuff, and if it doesn't happen, then that's the way that the chips. But like, I'm not big about jinxes. I'm not big about any of that stuff. I put good things out there, and I'm not gonna like boast or anything. But like talking about the interview, like before it's happened on this and stuff, like fuck yeah. And if it doesn't happen, there's something else right down the road. But great, I
as
think
long
that's
as
been
as long as you've gotten to that place where like you can share this stuff and just not be dissuaded from it. That's just a difference. Like if you
and
you know
I don't know. I don't know if it's dissuade or not, but like it definitely isn't fun when I've had stuff that I was talking about not really happen and like it sucks. But yeah.
just the main point is like
I know I'm not gonna say it's because of someone else though.
right, exactly. Just knowing
Yeah,
like
like,
opinions don't mean shit, like regardless of how convicted the person is about it. Who gives a
yeah,
fuck? That doesn't mean
exactly.
anything.
That's where I'm coming from. I'm trying to think like what's meant to be will be, and I'm gonna come from a place of like strength.
Yep.
Wait, by the way, I wanna ask too. How's the job? How's the new job?
It's great, man. I'm loving it. The
Congrats.
commute's been brutal because I'm here in LA, but like we're moving the 27th to Wrightwood. And job itself, bro, I'm just teaching kids about film. It's great. It's a great day job.
How like give me a brief summary of how it's gone.
I had an intro to film. The funny thing is, man, Corey Kenshin, that YouTuber who like put us on where we got like 7K subscribers in a day. I told all the kids that I was on there like 3 times, and they're like, no shit. That was a big fucking deal. But bro, like an example is my intro to film class. I was like, who's made a short film? No one raised their hands. And I'm like, all right, like let's start pitching some stuff. Like, what films do you guys like watching? Whatever. And they were like, like psychological thrillers. I'm like, that's my shit. Like, let's pitch some stuff. And I'm over at the whiteboard, like, let's come with some ideas. We banged out a script. We're gonna
So you
shoot.
had no syllabus up front?
No.
Because
I
you're
had
coming from like,
I
hey,
had I had approved outlines, which is I mean, it's really helpful, but like uh as far as like the day-to-day and week-to-week stuff, that's on me.
so you have kind of free reign.
I
I mean,
have I,
don't you
I
have to
have
like grade them? Don't you have to grade the kids and stuff?
yeah, for sure. I do have the freedom to kind of take like what's approved in the outlines and stuff and kind of do my own thing. Which is all I need. I mean, there are certain things that they have to learn like about film and etc. But like that's all stuff that I'm gonna teach them anyway. You
Awesome.
know,
How old are they?
7th through 12th grade.
Wow. Is there a big difference between the older and younger?
The high schoolers are typically better behaved.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it a lot of kids or small school?
My classes, I mean, the biggest one is like 17 kids or something. I have small classes, which I
Awesome.
like.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like hard work yet. It's kind of fun.
I'm having a good time. I mean, it was like day 3, so I'm really fresh, but it's fun.
I'm happy for you. Well, if you ever need a guest actor to come in and
Bro, 100%.
clowning, do some clowning.
Already be avid listeners of the pod by that point. So they'll
Dude,
be stoked.
do they know you have a pod yet?
Not yet, but
Forgotten
better
too.
believe.
That is like a fun little angle, actually.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we'll get to talk about stuff that you guys are like working on and everything too, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Great stuff as always.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you too, brother.
All right, bro. I'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Bye.